Cynthia, welcome back to the Soccer Queens podcast.
Aloha. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. I'm so excited to connect with you again because my passion is to help others thrive. And I know you have some questions for me that my answers might just help one person, two people, who knows how many out there today.
I am so happy to have you on, and it's always a pleasure talking to you, especially about nutrition for the health as well as performance of our female athletes. And I always say we should focus on health first, especially with their hormones. And then when they get that down, it really helps their athletic performance as well. So today, everyone, I have made a list, got my list right here of top 10 nutrition lies. And you're going to be surprised because a lot of these you probably hear on a regular basis. And that's why I wanted Cynthia to come on for just a longer discussion because I feel if I would tweet about these things, people wouldn't understand the nuance. So we're really going to get into the weeds of why some of these common messages you hear can be dangerous for our female athletes. And it's just really going to get you thinking about everything. So let's get into the first one. And this one might shock a lot of people. So, lie number one, there is no such thing as bad foods. So, what do you say to that lie, Cynthia?
We'll start saying that most people are educated by what they're told. We can all agree on that. So we have to then start to dissect where are we getting our information from and how much do we believe that information. So unfortunately, for most of America, they people get their information from ads on television. Now you might want to think that you're not susceptible to ads, but these companies spend billions of dollars in marketing so that you go out and buy that product. What if I were to also tell you that they spend billions and billions of dollars on skewing the scientific research to also prove that you need that sugar, you need that Coca Cola? Did you know that Coca Cola was behind the movement that fat is bad for you and that basically you need to exercise to lose body fat and that Coca Cola is good? It's not the sugar, it's because you need to exercise. Coca Cola was behind that movement. So you have to really start to ask yourself, how did I get the information that I got? Was it because I read an article in a women's fitness magazine? Was it because I saw a commercial? Was it because somebody told me that smoothies are healthy for me? So I think it's important to realize that the food of today is not the food of our grandparents. And yeah, we can say that's old fashioned to say, but it's true. For one thing, there are many more chemical toxins in the environment that are leaching into our food. And second, there are so many more processed foods. And so the myth that there are no bad foods, well, I guess it depends on what you define as food. Because if I'm going grocery shopping, I don't define most of that middle aisle of junk food as food. It's, processed garbage. So why do I say that? It's because I see what happens to people when they eat this. Unfortunately, the education of our nutritionists and dietitians are also a little bit skewed. We can get into that. So it's not really their fault in a way. But so I would say, where are you getting your information about food? And where are you getting your information about what's a bad food and what's a good food? And so for me, I see food as something that is an optimal, something that you can intake for optimal fuel, for optimal performance and health. Because why are we here? We're here to have a long, healthy quality of life. That is the bottom line. And if you've ever talked to anyone that's been very sick, they will tell you the only thing they wish they had back was their health. So when I work with clients, even Olympians, professional athletes, we focus on their health first. And to say that there are no bad foods is to say that they could eat any processed garbage they want. And that's just not the case for longevity.
So, would it harm people if they ate these processed foods from time to time? I think there can be some fear mongering, like, oh, if you have one cookie, you're gonna die. What would you say to that?
Yeah, of course. Like, we want metabolic flexibility, which means that you can intake all kinds of different macros, and not have it have an ill effect on you. What happens when people problems, get into problems with their health, immune system, hormones, is when they're consistently eating these foods. Now, if you have somebody recommending processed foods for sports performance when you have a teenage girl, they're set up for failure right there because they can't consistently eat these foods and not have a hormone imbalance and not have chronic disease down the line. You're just setting them up for 10 years later of them having to go to the doctor or come to someone like me to fix their health. Um, so yeah, do I sometimes partake in a little ice cream party with my kids? Sure, but I can tell you that I'm still choosing the lower sugar ice cream, and I'm still making smart decisions because I just don't like how it makes me feel afterwards. And once you feel great, you're like, I never want to go back to how I felt before because the increased energy, if you've never experienced it, and the drive to just tackle life every day and do your best and just be happy all the time, it's so worth it not to have that cookie every day. And if you want a cookie every day, that's actually kind of not your fault either because you've just set up your chemicals and your neurotransmitters to crave that cookie. So once you start changing your intake of nutrient dense foods, you don't even crave that cookie anymore. So yeah, will one cookie harm you? Yeah, no. But how often are you having that cookie, and what bacteria are they feeding? And we can get into that too.
I totally agree. It's like when you make that lifestyle shift to having these really great nutritious foods that actually satisfy you, when you do have a dessert from time to time, you're like, "Oh, I don't feel as good because I'm so used to having so much energy and so much focus and just motivation for the day." And after you have that cookie or whatever, you actually look forward to going back to your lifestyle of nutritious foods. And every Christmas, Casey and I make Christmas cookies because it is the holidays. But even after then, I'm just like, you know what? I'm good. I'm kind of ready to go back to my steaks and bacon and all these other foods. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Now let's go to the next lie. So this one we see a lot in the nutrition world, especially on Instagram. So number two is athletes must eat balanced performance plates. Now, when I see this one, I feel like balance is this like arbitrary word. Like, who is to say what the definition of balance is, right? So, why is this a lie? Why, like, what is a performance plate? Is there one? What is your performance plate and why? Let's go for it.
Yeah, actually, you were the one that introduced me to this term performance plate because, like most other things, it's this made up um, trend, I guess you would say, in order to get someone to do what you want them to do or what you're suggesting so that you can get attention. So the best performance plate is the one that gives you optimal health, period. Optimal health and longevity free of chronic illness for as long as you can in your life. That is the optimal performance plate. Let's not forget that your health is what's most important. Your performance comes when you fuel for your health. So I had a Olympic athlete who, when she contacted me, could barely get out of bed in the morning. She had really bad autoimmune issues and these weird rashes on her legs she couldn't get rid of. She was stuck in an antibiotic cycle. She had gained weight. She had already been to one Olympics. She wanted to go to another, and she was just not performing well. Why? Because she was sick. She had autoimmune issues. So we had to tackle those first because there was no way she was going to get back to another Olympics unless she fixed her health first. And you know what? If she still didn't make it back to another Olympics, it doesn't matter because she needed to fix her health so that she could get out of bed in the morning and enjoy her life. So not only did we turn it around within 3 months, she made her second Olympics and now she's made her third Olympics. And she basically broke the American record in her event and just is, top three in the world. But it could have been a different path if she hadn't understood that what the doctors were telling her was not correct about nutrition. And if she had kept following her nutritionist, her team nutritionist, we'll say performance plate guidelines, she would have stayed stuck in that same scenario. So I think the performance plate would be something that gives you the optimal energy and longevity and quality of life for your competition, yes, but also for afterwards. Because if you have unbalanced hormones, as like we'll say a teenage girl, because that's going to be your target audience today. But this could be for any age, but we'll say teenage girl. If you have cramps, which are not normal, yes, but are they necessary? No. You don't have to have PMS symptoms. You don't have symptoms. You don't have to have acne. These are all things that are optional, and if what you eat depends on how that scenario plays out. So basically, your performance plate to me as a teenage girl is something that is nutrient dense, that gives you lasting energy, not a high and a crash, which tends to be carbohydrates, tends to be sugars. That's something that does not give you acne, which we can break down to dairy and sugar. We see all these girls drinking frappuccinos left and right in high school, and there couldn't be anything worse for you. I even saw some sort of sports nutritionist saying have caffeine and sugar before a match or something like that, and somebody was like, "Oh, the frappuccinos I've been drinking are the right thing, the healthy thing. This that's for my performance." I'm going to tell you, like, absolutely not. I have to fix girls all the time who are drinking these sugary caffeinated drinks. So a performance plate for me and for my clients tends to be all nutrient dense foods. So we're going to get antioxidants from berries, which are very low glycemic. We don't want that sugar spike, because then comes the crash. We need that sustained energy. We need high fats that can come from sources like nuts, macadamia nuts, pecans, not moldy nuts. Cashews are not even technically a nut, like things like that are moldy, no, because you're going to increase inflammation. And then, of course, the most nutrient dense food out there is steak. And any research that says that steak slows you down, I can tell you from client experience that the fastest athletes in the world are eating steak. I set my personal best running faster in my 40s than I did as a Division I athlete in college on steak. I literally was eating steak an hour before. So I can sometime other get into the research on why steak is great for performance. But it's nutrient dense. It's full of B vitamins. It's full of creatine, carnosine, carnitine, like all of the really great amino acids that are going to give you the energy that you need for your performance. So that would be something more like a performance plate for myself and my athletes.
I actually showed some of my athletes on a remote call a few days ago the nutrients in a ribeye, and they were like, "What? We had no clue there were this many vitamins and minerals and healthy fats and iron as well as great for our girls."
Iron
And they
is
were shocked, and but I believe it. I mean, not a lot of girls are educated on this, how these amazing animal-based single ingredient foods are just packed with nutrients. So I think that's a great perspective on the performance plate. Now, just kind of going off of that, let's get into the next lie. You need color with every meal. So our fruits and our vegetables. What do you say to that one?
Well, this is again going back to what they're teaching in nutrition school. So, my mentor would tell us that all of the medical textbooks are about 30 years outdated. So, unless these doctors and we'll say nutritionists are keeping up on all of the studies, the most recent studies in all of the journals, then they're really behind on the research. So, I'm going to say that eat your fruits and vegetables kind of falls into the same category as eating a balanced diet, eating according to the food pyramid, which we know is, wrong. And we saw a South Park episode where, the South Park kids were calling the government, telling them that the pyramid is upside down, which is hilarious. If you haven't seen that clip, you should look it up on YouTube. So even the South Park writers know that the food pyramid's upside down. But really, the fruits and vegetables, okay, if you are, eating an apple from Costco today, it's not the same. So, yeah, eat your fruits and vegetables. Yeah, you do need the nutrients, and I think I'm a big fan of polyphenols. Not everybody in every community of nutrition is, but I'm a big fan of polyphenols. So I isolate the important. If you don't know what a polyphenol is, it's basically a type of antioxidant that comes in certain fruits and vegetables. So I basically pinpoint what are the highest content foods of these polyphenols with the least amount of toxins or things that bind to your metals that you need, like zinc and iron. So, for instance, a lot of plant based eating will bind all of those important nutrients like zinc and iron. I can't tell you how many young female athletes that have come to me with problems, especially anemia and iron deficiency, because they've been eating plant based, especially smoothies, and they're not getting. They think they're getting iron from the spinach, but they're actually getting kidney stone formations, calcium buildup from the oxalates. So some oxalates, fine. These are found in nuts and especially leafy greens, but a whole smoothie's worth, they're not getting their iron. It's clearly not happening because they're anemic, and they're blocking the other iron that they might get from meat because they're eating too many plants. This is something that I see all the time and I have to fix. And it's, I'm here today because I have plenty of clients. I am very particular about who I work with. I work with professional athletes, Olympians, and I select certain autoimmune kind of clients that I find interesting because nobody else can help them or tell them what's wrong. And I love to help fix them. I love making babies. I pride myself in helping to give a couple a baby that can, haven't been able to get pregnant, and I figure out what's going on and help them have a baby. Love that. That's the best thing ever, but better than any medal. But I don't want to have to fix everyone. So I hope that someone listening out there today understands that a plant-based eating way or eating too many fruits and vegetables can actually be harmful. And so the place where they're getting their information is outdated. That's the bottom line.
Now that segues us to our next slide. So this one is for the vegans and vegetarians. You can get all the protein you need by combining different nuts and seeds with different amino acid content.
A good person to follow for this information is Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. So if you're not familiar with Gabrielle Lyon, go ahead and look her up. She has a really clear cut message on can you get the amount of protein you need in plants and grains? Yeah, but you'd have to eat so much of it that you're going to cause gastrointestinal issues. You're going to cause things like IBS, and you're going to cause nutrient deficiencies in other areas. So do you want to eat 6 cups of quinoa at night, for dinner? If that's what you want to do, fine, but you're still going to be missing the leucine that you need that only comes from the animal protein. So leucine is what's most important for building muscle mass, and it's just not the same supplemented. It's the best package is red meat for leucine. So basically, the vegans and vegetarians, again, I have to fix all the time. B12 deficiency all the time. Supplementing B12 is not the same as eating red meat. I have met so many vegans that have just, said we had to start eating meat again because we got so sick. And again, like I don't want to have to, I don't have time to fix everyone in the world, but if somebody out there can listen, um, it's okay to, eat sustainable red meat. And if you think that you're not killing animals by being vegan, then you should look at the amount of rodents that die in the crops that you're eating. So when they spray the fields or, um, you know, even almond fields are killing the bees. But basically, corn, soy, all of the plant-based pea protein, especially all of the plant-based crops, they have to kill all the rodents in the field. And not to mention insects and all that stuff. So I think it's one of those arguments where it's they think they're being virtuous and they think that they're saving all the animals, but it's actually more efficient for the planet and for sustaining life, if that's what you care about, by eating one cow than killing 300 mice for your serving of corn. That's just my opinion. Like if you are absolutely, hell bent on being vegan, then you can be, but just expect that you're going to have deficiencies, you're going to have health issues, you're going to have weak bones, and you're not going to have optimal performance for sure.
I see a lot of girls going vegan, not necessarily for the killing animals reason, but more so because they fear that they're going to get too bulky or gain weight having all this protein, and it just breaks my heart to hear that because it's really the opposite. You really get the body composition that makes you powerful and robust, and you'll find this funny. I had a girl message me, well, it was kinda sad at first, but she says, "I haven't had my period for a year. I've been doing mainly, plant-based," and I told her, I said, "I have about 2 pounds of meat a day, and you need to get it back in your diet so you can get all the nutrients and feel full and not feel starving." And she goes, "Well, will I gain weight?" And I literally go, "Look at me. Like, did I did I gain weight?" And you'll find this funny too. I had a whole box of chicken wings, about 30 of them, before my wedding, and everyone around me was freaking out. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna be so bloated, blah, blah." And I'm like, "No, it's
Bloated with
actually
chicken
the
wings.
opposite." But I think girls, like, they go vegetarian or vegan because they fear that weight gain, which is crazy because it's actually the opposite.
Yeah, I have a teenage daughter. She's in college now. She's 18, and so she told me that yeah, like her generation, it seems like on social media that being wafy skinny is a trend, and I'm all for the movement of strong women versus weak skinny women, and so the more I can perpetuate that to the youth that I come across, and I know it's the same for you, is to give that message to girls to be empowered and not be weak and skinny. Like weight does not matter. Somebody actually just asked me, I think on Instagram the other day, like how much do you weigh? Because I'm curious what a healthy body weight looks like. They didn't ask me how tall I was or anything like that. And I was like, wow, why is everyone so weight obsessed? Yeah, I mean, I guess for my grappling athletes, we do have to track weight, but um, what happens is that when they work on body composition, they don't even have to think about weight. So I had a jujitsu athlete who's in his second year of jujitsu, and he just placed third. He just missed gold by 1 point. And so he almost won the gold at world championships, but he won the bronze. So he's third best in the world in his second year of jujitsu, and he cut weight just by following my nutrient dense protocol. So he followed it, and he didn't have to starve. He didn't have to run his weight off. He didn't have to sit in a sauna and be weak for his competition. He made his weight with a couple pounds to spare, no problem. And he was really proud of that. And so not only was he making his weight, which again, like for the normal person or for a teenage girl, that's not what you should be thinking about. It's the nutrient dense foods and what's going to give you the most lasting energy and quality of life later on. So weight, no. Body composition, yes. What's going to give you the body composition? That lean muscle tissue. That, like we used to hear the term muscle burns fat. I mean, kind of in a way. Yes, that's a good way to think about, an easy way to explain to a teenage girl. So if you want to say, do you want to be skinny and fat, or do you want to be strong and lean? And I would say that most teenage girls actually want to be strong and lean. And so they're not going to get that way with nutritionists and dietitians who are trained by schools that are funded by Kellogg's. Unfortunately, this is a true story. Kellogg's funding one of the top nutrition programs in the country, and they're telling all their athletes and their um, you know everyone that they need Pop Tarts. You need Pop Tarts. You need sugar. You need sugar. You're an athlete. This is one of, I mean, I don't know if that's on your list, but
Oh, it
definitely a myth.
is. Yeah.
Definitely a myth.
Let's
Um,
let's let's get into that one next,
yeah,
and
the
I agree
bottom
with
line is,
you.
teenage girls, let's be strong and lean and tough. Um, and let's not be body composition, body fat percentage. Look at body fat percentage, not in a negative way, but in a positive way. And body composition over weight. Like I don't even, the weight doesn't matter. It's your body composition.
So the whole sugar discussion, this is going to be really controversial for everyone, but I'm with you on all this because I see the nutrition industry very similar to the medical industry, and how there are these giant stakeholders who are funding the nutrition studies. So when certain dietitians say that they're science and evidence based. It's like, well, who's funding these studies? Kellogg's, General Mills, and all the people with the money, just like big pharma's funding a lot of the medical studies to push prescriptions and not natural treatments. So let's talk about sugar because we hear this a lot, and this is the next lie. All athletes need sugar for energy.
Okay, let's get into the sugar. Oh boy, sugar is inflammatory. And to have your optimal athletic performance and your optimal health, you want to have the lowest chronic inflammation. What do I mean by that? Okay, so there's inflammation that comes from, say, exercise. You have a great workout, your body, your muscle tissues are tearing, the fibers are tearing, and then they have to build back together stronger. That's what gives you strength, and that's what makes you more fit, this type of thing. So you need actually some inflammation to help repair those tissues. But what you don't want is chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is when your body keeps having to fight something in order to keep going. So it's like you have a pathogenic bacteria that escapes into your blood system, and your body has to keep attacking it. This can cause autoimmune problems. Autoimmune means your body's attacking itself. So where does sugar come into this? Sugar is inflammatory. So it basically causes this chronic state of inflammation, leads to injury. Because if your tissues are always inflamed, they're not healing and they're not getting stronger. So they're going to rip apart. This is one of the reasons, the inflammation. So, I mean, pushing sugar and processed foods is basically pushing injury. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again. Not to mention, our, okay, so the Olympian that I discussed earlier with the autoimmune issues, she went to a very, very, very prestigious university for sports. Their nutritionist as well pushed sugar or said it's fine for you to have sugar, that sort of thing. And they didn't say, hey, have you been genetically tested for the apolipoprotein E allele? So if I just lost you on what is ApoE, ApoE4 is a genetic marker, a gene. And if you have the allele, then you are more likely not to be able to process sugar. Your glucose metabolism is faulty. And a lot of people have this. It actually helps lead to Alzheimer's. And the Alzheimer's plaque buildup, which it's controversial whether that is the cause, but it's definitely, we'll say, even if it's the plaque buildup's not the cause of Alzheimer's, it's a marker that goes along with the tangles and other things that eventually lead to Alzheimer's. Really, it's a sugar issue. So they call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. I don't know if anyone knows that. You have type 1 diabetes you're born with, you're not making insulin in your pancreas. Type 2 diabetes is definitely diet related for eating too much sugar or having genetics that you can't process the glucose. But also, this type 3 diabetes they call is Alzheimer's. So you can't metabolize the glucose in your brain. And so, what are we doing with these young athletes, these young girls, when we're telling them you can eat sugar, but you don't know? Have you genetically tested them? Do you know that they can process glucose? What happens is 5 years later, they go from high school to college, they've gone through their college sports, and now they have all kinds of thyroid problems, hormone imbalances, autoimmune issues, and it's because they can't.
PCOS is a big one.
Oh, I see PCOS all the time,
All the
and
time.
it's
Yep.
very easily reversible. Okay,
Do you wanna
I'm telling
explain
you.
PCOS because it is running rampant in teenage girls, and it definitely is because of this chronic inflammation from too much sugar and carbohydrates, but no one's talking about it.
Yeah, no one's talking about it. I mean, let's just be frank. In a general picture, the nutrition education that's going on, that's outdated, as we discussed, is causing all kinds of chronic illnesses. Because how do we know? Because we have an increase in chronic illness, we have an increase in obesity, so we know that it's not working. We do have increase in things like PCOS and other hormonal imbalances and thyroid imbalances, hyperthyroidism, etc. So PCOS is basically when you're making too much testosterone, and it's directly related to having too much sugar in the diet. So there are some supplements that I recommend that help control that. One of them is myo-inositol. There's a lot of research. If anyone Googles myo-inositol and PCOS, you'll find the research. Um, However, you can also look up PCOS and diet, and the number one thing that says is cut carbohydrates, not just sugar, all carbohydrates. So tell someone, a young girl, you can have sugar, and to broadcast out there on a mass scale that I'm a sports nutritionist, wrestling, soccer, whatever it is, whatever sport it is. I've seen them all. There's like a account for every sport, and they're all pushing these disgusting processed foods or chocolate milk or some crap like that, and they don't know that they're setting these girls up for these terrible hormone imbalances where they're going to have acne all around. If you have acne around this area of your face, that's a big sign of PCOS. So what you need to do is basically have a more nutrient dense animal protein based diet, is step one. But you know, everyone's a little bit different of how much of each thing they need. So I encourage your listeners, if you think you have PCOS or you know someone with PCOS, go ahead and look up the diet for PCOS. You'll see it's no sugar, no carbohydrates, and look up myo-inositol. Yeah, so we're basically doing these girls a big disservice by pushing the sugar. Not we, but the general nutritionists out there. And I mean, I've worked with Olympians that have had in different sports, they're Team USA nutritionists. You would think is the ultimate, okay, that you know, they are the highest in the nation. They made it to be Team USA nutritionists for their sport. And then I got another client over here, a guy. He's got a different sport, Team USA nutritionist. Okay, they're both saying the same garbage and they're not getting results. And they're coming to me because they're like, why am I not getting results? My nutritionist says that my brown rice and salmon and chicken breast and you know whatever is and plant-based smoothies are the right way to go, that I'm eating healthy. They keep approving my meals, but I'm not getting the results I want. And I tell them it's because you shouldn't be eating this, you shouldn't be eating that. Oh my gosh, you're eating 100 grams of sugar a day. And they're like, well, they give us Powerade,
Yeah.
you know, smoothies every day or whatever, slushies. That's what they are. Powerade slushies at the Olympic Training Center. And they push them. They brought the Powerade slushie machine to the World Championships in Dubai at one point to make sure that their athletes had sugar. Okay, so uh, they come to me, I change everything. I tell them the opposite of basically what their Team USA nutritionist said, and they thrive. Their performances skyrocket. They win medals. They go to multiple Olympics, and they're happy. I'm happy. And guess what? When they retire, they get to have babies and they get to live a long, happy life. So that makes me happy. So yeah, sugar. No, my athletes keep their sugar to under 15 grams a day. Definitely under 20 grams a day, but under 15 grams a day, which I think I encourage you to start adding up how much sugar you're actually consuming and realize that it's just not good for your long-term health. And another thing you can look up about the sugar is your telomere effect. So telomere is the cap on the end of your chromosomes of your DNA. So every time as we age, we have to keep making new cells, right? And so as these cells replicate, a little bit of that cap gets cut off. So some people are born with longer telomeres than others. They're the ones that seem to be able to tolerate junk food for longer or tolerate smoking for longer, that sort of thing. But eventually it catches up to them. So every time their cap gets cut, there are things that lengthen telomeres. Guess what? Red meat is one of them. They lengthen telomeres. And telomere is a biomarker of how long you can live. So it's your longevity marker. So you want long telomeres for as long as you can. Sugar is one of the biggest things that shortens telomeres. So you're shortening your lifespan by eating too much sugar. Dr. Melissa Epple has done wonderful research on this. So your listeners can look that up too.
And another thing I'll add with the sugar thing is I've had girls say when they decreased their sugar intake, their mood got so much better and they were more steady throughout the day. They didn't have really amplified PMS symptoms. And I think that's so amazing because a lot of girls believe that they have to suffer with these mood swings or painful cramps. But when they finally see the light because they make this change and they kind of go against the mainstream, they're feeling so much better. And that just makes my heart so happy. And I know a lot of people are going to find this sugar conversation controversial, which brings us to the next lie. So I'm sure people are going to say, restricting so much can cause a harmful relationship with food, and it can lead to disordered eating if we tell girls to eat too clean. And I've seen this on some dietitians' pages how eating too clean can lead to disordered eating. Now, if that were the case, I would probably be anorexic and bulimic because I eat clean every day for the most part. So, why is this a lie?
Oh boy. Okay, so another athlete I work with was a NCAA champion in her sport, and when I first started working, she's in her 20s, so she decided not to. She could have easily gone pro and gone to the Olympics as well, but she's decided that this is not the path that she wanted to go down. And when we had our first consultation, she confessed to me that she was a little worried, that she hadn't done any protocols in a while because she had developed an eating disorder in college, doing college athletics, because she was so worried about calories. And so the first thing we did is we tossed those calories out the window because it's all about your metabolic flexibility, not the calories. So calories in, calories out will have you drop weight, but it will not have you have the ultimate performance, the ultimate body composition, the ultimate longevity, the health and longevity. That's what we're after. So I, talked it through with her, because of course I didn't want her to have any triggers with her past eating disorder. I'm very sensitive to that. And she started on the protocol. And after a couple months, she reached out to me and she said, Thank you so much, Cynthia, because this is the first time in my life that I'm not worried about the food I'm eating. I actually feel so much energy from the nutrient density in these foods that I'm satisfied all the time. So when you're eating a high protein, high fat, and again, like this is nuanced per individual. So when a client comes to me, I choose the proteins for them. Red meat is always on that list though. I choose the proteins for them. I choose the fats for them, that sort of thing. I choose the antioxidants for them. But when you're eating a high protein, high fat diet, as opposed to a high carbohydrate processed food diet, you're going to be more satisfied. So I think the opposite of that myth, I think that you're really setting girls up for disordered eating when you're just counting calories. I have a family member, unfortunately, who wanted to lose weight in her 30s, and she ate a snowball. Snowballs from they're like donuts or something from the convenience store. She would eat one snowball and like a handful of something else per day because that was her calorie limit. And she became quickly nutrient deficient, and ended up in the hospital. So, like, that's not what we want to happen because if you're in the hospital, you're not playing your game, you're not competing, and you're very sick for the most part. Like, that's the most important thing is the longevity and the health. So, but if you're only worried about sports performance, if you're sick, you're not performing. So let's, fix the health first. And that includes basically not setting our girls up or anyone up for disordered eating by telling them that only the calories matter and that you can eat anything you want. But rather, let's provide them empowerment with nutrient dense foods that have all the vitamins that they need, that balance their hormones. They don't feel like, like they're lost because every month they go down into this dark place with PMS. That does not have to happen. And if these girls are eating so much omega-6 oils and like canola oil, look at your listeners should look at the ingredients. And if there's sunflower oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, these are omega-6 oils and they're inflammatory. You need to have an appropriate omega-3, omega-6 balance. And the best omega-3s come from fish. They come from fatty fish, not from seeds. I'm just going to fill you in on that. The seeds are not processed well by the body. We do not digest the seeds well. And if you don't believe me, you can see that they come out the other side. Sorry, TMI. But
That's
so
so
basically,
true. Yeah.
yeah. So you want to get your omega threes from the fatty fish, but why not set them up with this empowered nutrient density that has them satisfied and lean, and everyone's telling them they look healthy, right? Like we know these lean girls who are not bulky, because that's a myth as well. The protein is not going to make you bulky. It's going to make you so that you burn the body fat that you don't need. Um, because I don't know if, I mean, you and I know it's common knowledge, but when you eat too many carbohydrates, that gets stored as body fat, as adipose tissue. And so what happens with females especially is that when our environment is filled with toxins, we store the toxins in our hamstring body fat, and especially our quad body fat. So if your hamstrings and quads are getting a little bit fattier, it's because you're storing that in your body's trying to protect you by storing those toxins there. So you have to detoxify. And disordered eating comes from this obsession to be skinny, but you're more likely to be mentally balanced and physically balanced if you're eating a high protein, high fat, nutrient dense diet. How do I know? Because I have hundreds of clients. I have worked with professional athletes in so many different sports. And so this is how I know, because I've been through it, I've experienced it. Not myself, but with my clients. So I think it's the opposite. I think we're setting our girls up for failure by telling them that they can eat processed foods. I can't even remember some of the most ridiculous ones, but there's some really ridiculous ones out there with chips and different, I don't even know, definitely sugary snacks, right? On some of these
Yeah.
nutritionist pages. Um,
Yeah,
cupcakes,
there's
whatever.
a lot of
Cupcakes, cake.
nonsense out there.
Yeah, so, like, we are setting them up because they're like, "Okay, I just got all my calories in this cupcake, so now I can't eat anything the rest of the day because I wanna be thin." When
Right.
instead, they could eat this, a little tiny piece of steak,
Mhm.
and a handful of nuts and some blueberries, and they could feel amazing for hours and then be like, "Oh, I feel amazing, and I don't feel bloated, and I don't have PMS, and I don't have depression, and I don't have anxiety. I feel great. I'm gonna eat something like that again." And then they do it again. They eat some salmon with, maybe some broccoli and some really good grass-fed butter for their fats. And they're like, "Wow, I ate this much food, not this much pasta, and I feel amazing." Don't we want all of our girls, all of our children, all of our friends, all of our family, don't we want them to feel amazing? If
Mhm.
they're not feeling amazing and they're following some nutritionist program, questions need to be asked.
I agree. I think it is the opposite, especially when the few foods that you're picking have all these nutrients and they really fill you up, because then you're not constantly thinking about, okay, what's my next snack? What am I going to eat at 3 p.m.? What's my next meal? And your day is centered around food and the next thing. And whenever I wake up and I have a ribeye or bacon and eggs for breakfast, it's like for like 6 hours can go by and I didn't even think about my next meal. I'm productive for the day. I'm serving people. I'm getting stuff done. And food's just an afterthought. It's more about, okay, what am I putting in my body to survive and thrive and feel full? And I wonder if that's also because with really good animal-based proteins, the fatty content, the protein content is also really good for girls' brains, and just really making sure that their brain chemistry is changing. And there's a lot of psychiatric literature that does say that animal-based proteins and really upping those in the diet can put eating disorders into remission, can help girls with things like OCD, and OCD actually starts eating disorders. So it's really interesting to look at that research. I really like Dr. Chris Palmer. I really like Dr. Georgia Ede, who's coming out with a book called Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. I mean, it's so incredible for our girls. And I think a lot of people listening are like, okay, like you guys eat steak every day. That's so restrictive. You're only eating one thing. And I'm like, actually, when I eat that one thing, I feel amazing. I get a ton of nutrients. And I asked my girls on a call this question. I said, is eating steak every day restrictive? And a lot of them did say yes. But then when I showed them the picture of the ribeye with all the vitamins and minerals, they're like, wait a minute, that's not restrictive because you're getting a ton of nutrients in that single meal. And my argument is, why not keep nutrition simple? And you don't need to have all this variety, and it can be overwhelming when a lot of girls get these plans. It's like, okay, have yogurt and then crackers and then chia seeds and then, change it up tomorrow, have like tuna and then salmon, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, there's so many different meals. Why can't I just pick a few things that I actually enjoy eating?" Which leads me to the next lie. You need a variety of foods to eat different meals and to get all your nutrients and antioxidants. Do you really need that much variety?
Well, I think that's, variety is again subjective. So the variety that I give my clients and I use is probably not the same variety as the gal pushing Triscuits and chocolate milk or whatever it is, Cheetos and Takis, whatever. But it's not that much variety. But I do encourage my clients to vary their meals. So, steak every day. You don't have to have steak every day, but maybe you have lamb burgers for breakfast one day. Maybe you can still be within the red meat realm. And I'm going to tell you that the wild caught red meats have even more nutrient density. So venison, elk, um, that sort of thing. The lamb has a lot of fats. And you mentioned brain health, and there are many, many, many different sources of literature out there and really high profile scientific journals indicating that from the red meat is what's responsible for forming your myelin sheath. Your myelin sheath is the coating around your nerves. And if you have anxiety or any kind of nervousness, your myelin sheath might be compromised. So the red meat takes care of the B12, and then the fats also contribute to the myelin sheath because it's a fatty tissue. So you really need those fats, and it encourages brain fuel, the higher fats, as well as, like you said, animal-based proteins. So these animal-based proteins do have healthy fats. There was some literature years ago that said that the saturated fat in red meat is inflammatory and unhealthy for you, but it wasn't the saturated fat in red meat that they were measuring. They were associating saturated fat and the fact that red meat has saturated fat in the same category. But the most recent research has shown that the saturated fat in animal proteins is not inflammatory and is not bad for you and does not contribute to heart disease. So again, if you're in a nutrition school with 30 years ago research, you're being taught the wrong thing. So in a way, like, maybe we can forgive these gals or guys a little bit because they're being taught the wrong thing. But at the same time, I think people shouldn't be so close-minded as to just follow anything anyone says from a nutrition school without knowing where they're getting their research from. Um, so yeah, I forgot where we were with that. The higher fats, was the
Yeah, well, that you kinda led me to
variety? Okay,
the
variety.
last lie
There is one
here,
thing. Yeah,
the
the one thing I want to say
cholesterol.
about the variety is,
Oh, yeah, variety, yeah.
yeah, is that I do encourage not eating the same food every day. And that is because most people have compromised gut linings. My mentor, Charles, taught me this. So most people have compromised gut linings, meaning that they're eating things that are like sandpaper to their epithelial lining of their gut, which is only one cell thick. It protects your gut line. It's basically your gut lining protects your barrier going into your blood. So these tight junctions that allow things like zinc and iron and magnesium through open too much, and little pieces of food escape. Now, if you're eating the same thing every day and that same food's going into your bloodstream, your body is more likely to identify it as a pathogen and start attacking yourself. So you're going to get actually a very bad response. So it's better if you vary your foods as much as possible within a certain realm. I would say, like, not processed food and sugar and things like that. That's not what we're talking about. But maybe not have, the same ribeye every single day for the rest of your life. But maybe, you can include the lamb or the venison or the elk, and you can include different types of fats, avocado and that sort of thing. But, if you want to, carnivore diets are very therapeutic. So if you have severe autoimmune issues and severe IBS, absolutely stick with just that ribeye every day if that's what makes you feel good until your symptoms are gone and your everything's, back to normal and balance. Then in that case, then the variety is not necessary, and a carnivore diet can actually be very therapeutic for extreme cases.
I like that, having the variety within that red meat category. I think lamb's so great. I mean, the fat content is just so appealing and so soothing, and it's just nice to just, like, have a little bit of a different taste and then go back to your ribeye the next day, and flank steak or different cuts is just nice to have. Now,
A favorite,
let's come
I
back to
know,
the fats. Let
I know
the
we got to get to that, but a favorite breakfast of my clients is to take the ground lamb and they
I
add
love
a
ground
little bit of
lamb.
fresh mint to it. So you chop up the fresh mint, add it in. And not everyone's an advocate of nuts, but I am. So a little bit of almond flour and egg in there for a little bit of choline and, to spark the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which gives you lasting energy. So you have like egg, almond flour, and a little bit of chopped mint into the lamb burger and fry it up in maybe some ghee. Amazing breakfast.
That sounds amazing. Oh, I love ghee as well. I love tallow and all the fats. So let's get into that because I saw today that female athletes should decrease their cholesterol and saturated fat intake. So that's the last lie. Why is that a lie?
Well, cholesterol as a marker for anything is completely outdated. I mean, the literature highly supports this. So, if you've been living under, I mean, you must have been living under a rock for the past 20 years if you still think that cholesterol comes from the diet. Cholesterol comes from the liver, and you need to support your liver. And the worst thing for the liver is high carbohydrate, high fructose diets. So there's fructose in a lot of processed foods, but as well, if you're eating too much fruit, this one's controversial. I'm just going to say for a lot of people, but I can tell you from experience from hundreds of clients, those that are doing fruit smoothies every day, they put their fruit in, they put their Greek yogurt in, maybe their spinach, whatever it is, but they're doing high fruit smoothies. They're getting excess fructose, they end up with fatty liver disease. Okay, and they look fit. They're thin. They're like marathon runners or whatever. They're weekend warriors. They're fit. They look fit. They're not fat. They're not obese. They're not alcoholics, and yet they have NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The only thing that's in common for all of these people is that they're eating excess fruit. So I'm just going to tell you that uh, you know it matters basically. And the cholesterol is not what matters. So you're going to have sometimes people that eat animal protein based and their cholesterol goes up a little bit, but their HDL goes up too. The HDL is the good cholesterol. Not only that, but B12 removes homocysteine from the blood, which high homocysteine is a marker for cardiovascular disease. So you actually need the B12 in the red meat to pull that homocysteine out. And it's very, I think we could get into the long complicated explanation, but the bottom line is if you think that eating high cholesterol foods increases your cholesterol, you're mistaken. If you think that a 205 cholesterol mark and your doctor wants to put you on a statin is good for your health, I can tell you that I've seen this road, and it goes very badly very quickly when they go on that statin for what, 5 points over what they think the average should be. Remember that blood work, the recommendations are for the average person.
Mhm.
I don't want to be average. I want to be a superhero. I want to be a superhero warrior for the rest of my life. And that's what I feel like every day. And I want everyone else to feel like that too. And I know you've had the same experience where all of a sudden your eyes are opened, you start eating nutrient dense foods that are animal protein based, and you feel amazing and you want everyone else to feel amazing too.
That's what it's all about because I see too many girls suffering from so many menstrual disorders, PCOS, endometriosis, not having a period for years, having painful cramps, getting acne, having terrible mood swings, and just thinking, okay, yeah, well, this is just part of life. And it's just like, no, you don't have to suffer. You just need the right information. And I just see a lot of misinformation going out there because it is mainstream. And what we're talking about today is definitely not mainstream. but someone has to say it because our girls' health matters, their performance matters, and I just know what they're being blasted with on Instagram and TikTok, and it's just nice to have a different perspective. And I really hope people start to get into the research and just really look these things up and follow different doctors. I mean, a lot of this information for me came from researching OBGYNs who are starting to talk about nutrition. A lot of OBGYNs will push the pill for better periods or for cramps or Tylenol and all the NSAIDs. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. So I'm going to advocate for myself and research myself and find these people. And I'll actually link in the caption below a couple of medical doctors and OBGYNs I really love who are talking about things like animal-based nutrition and just really making sure that we're optimizing our hormones as females. Now, my last question, this wasn't on my list today. So now a lot of people are like, okay, what is an ideal meal plan for a teenage soccer player? Like, should we not have carbs? Like, should we have some rice? Like, are you guys totally anti-carb? Like, how do we make this transition so we don't get sick or it's smooth? Like, walk me through that because this is new for a lot of people, and I wanna make sure they go about it in a way that the transition is smooth and they just kinda get over that initial hump.
Yeah, I think, researching different keto and carnivore advocates out there, Shawn Baker, Ken Berry, they can give, actually, you know what? Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, she has a great protocol. It's called the Lyon Protocol. It's free and, it looks very good to me for a generalized program. I do specific programs for individuals for optimization. So, like, I can't really give a general protocol because I need to know what's going on for optimization. So I need to know, like, what the symptoms are and things like that. And then I could say, oh, you're magnesium deficient for sure, or your zinc, you need more zinc, or that sort of thing. And then it would be maybe shellfish would be your priority over red meat for the first 3 weeks. So I deal with specialization. But, I would say look for clean animal protein, meaning organic sources, grass fed sources. Look for, I can give you a handful of fats that are healthy would be macadamia nuts, pecans, sometimes almonds from a clean source, avocado. Yes, it's full of folate. Um, and then I would say minimize the grains and processed foods. I absolutely do not let my clients have gluten. It basically causes those tight junctions we talked about to open too far. It's like sandpaper ripping the gut for everyone. So if you think you can tolerate gluten, you're probably mistaken. It means your body's just producing immunity to it. So no gluten, low sugar. Yeah, just look for real foods and don't go overboard with excessive anything, excessive greens, excessive salads, excessive fruits. Put that protein, animal-based protein content and healthy fats first. So I usually recommend somewhere at least your body weight. So like if you're 130 pounds, then aim for 130 grams of protein per day. I go above and beyond that because I'm a very active athlete. So I go for about 200 grams of protein a day. And so then the fats are usually around 75 grams of fat per day. Carbohydrates way under that 400 gram mark that most nutritionists are pushing because we want to be protein fat adapted, meaning we derive our fuel from that. That way, our liver is actually producing uh, the fuel. It's very complicated, but and it's not storing the fatty tissue from the carbohydrates. So carbohydrates, my athletes and myself, we keep to under usually 75 grams or under per day, not 20 grams like keto, not low. And the carbohydrate timing is important. So maybe your carbohydrates a little later in the day, lunch and dinner, as opposed to breakfast, because you don't want to have the crash that comes from consuming too many carbohydrates. It sets your neurotransmitters up better because the carbohydrates spark serotonin, which helps you wind down. So you want that later in the day. You want the dopamine and acetylcholine earlier in the day, which comes from especially the red meats and choline rich foods like nuts or eggs. So I hope that
Awesome.
helps a little bit. But
Yeah,
as far as the general protocol, I would say look up Gabrielle Lyon has a great one.
I think that's a really important point, and for anyone who is open to this lifestyle, I don't call any of what we just talked about a diet because a diet is something you don't look forward to. It's definitely not satisfying and you're always hungry and it's not nutrient dense. But a lifestyle is satisfying. It's health focused, performance focused. And if anyone is open to this lifestyle, I encourage you either contact Cynthia and work with her just so that transition from a standard American way of eating is smoother and your gut doesn't have like World War III going on inside of it when you do become fat adapted because it can happen. But Cynthia knows like the proper supports and just easing people into that. And I also really like Michelle Hearn. I've had her on the podcast before. She's an ultra marathoner as well who's doing a very similar lifestyle, and she strategically uses carbohydrates as rocket fuel, kind of just what Cynthia was talking about. So it's really important to have that guidance as you transition in, and don't make the mistake of trying to wing it yourself because your gut will be like, what the hell's going on? And you're not going to be able to get past that like 2 to 4 weeks. I think a lot of people give up when that transition in that 2 to 4 weeks is a little bit weird. But after that 4 weeks, you're like on cloud nine. You're like, holy crap, I didn't know this life existed. And you're like seeing everything in color. It's like really crazy when that happens. But I encourage
So,
everyone to get support and help if you are open to everything we talked about today.
yeah, that's great advice. I've seen it happen as early as 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, sugar is very addictive. It's uh, you always hear it lights up the brain the same place as narcotics, and that's true. It's actually related to dopamine. So that can be really hard to get through. But if you're supporting through amino acids found in animal protein, you're going to be better off. Yeah.
And I really think it's important for everyone to know the type of caliber athlete you work with. I mean, you work with Olympians and you get people results, not just in performance and faster sprint times, but just overall health and vitality and energy. And it's just so nice to see. And even you yourself, I mean, you're a walking example of this lifestyle. And you'll find this funny. So on my call, I actually showed my girls a picture of you running sprints. And I asked them, I'm like, okay, how old do you think she is? Guess what they said?
Well, tell me.
Oh my gosh, they said you were like mid-20s, early 30s, and I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna tell Cynthia this," but Cynthia's in her 40s. How old are
I'm a,
you again?
I'm fast approaching 50 actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was like, "She's
I'll
in
be
her
48
40s."
in a few weeks. I'll be 48. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Um,
insane,
and
and
honestly, I think I look better than I did in my 30s and 20s, because
absolutely, because 'cause you're
again,
eating
like
right. You're eating
I'm
right.
lengthening my telomeres.
Yep. You're
I'm
getting collagen
yeah,
and
well, collagen, that's basically it's high glycine, which comes
yep.
from animal protein. Not only that, but like one of my favorite clients I took on last year, she's 60 years old. She broke 9 world records. She runs almost as fast as me. Like there are some things she runs faster than me on like the 800 and 1500, but
Wow.
like 9 world records. And she was plant-based for 7 years. And I told her I was not going to take her as a client unless she ate meat. And I said, I'm sorry, I was very nice about it, but I said, I'm sorry, I don't take things that are plant based. It's not possible to achieve optimal performance and longevity and health. And she was having some hip inflammation. And she said, I'll eat meat tonight. And I said, well, actually, poultry is better for winding down as tryptophan. So I'll eat poultry tonight. And she sent me a picture of her chicken dinner. So I took the phone call and a couple, our scheduled phone call, and she was like, I'm all in. And she has been all in. She's been amazing. 9 world records at age 60. This woman runs so fast and jumps so high and hurdles so fast, you wouldn't even believe it. And her hip inflammation went away, all this stuff. Anyway, she's just one of many. I've worked with soccer players, national champion young soccer players. Um, And, it's to me, I'm on here today, not to bash dietitians or, you know, anyone that's been educated in the system, because again, I kind of don't blame them, but I do encourage everyone to do their own research. I encourage anyone who's curious about supplementation, you can do research into burn victims. That's where the latest cutting edge research is. But I read 50 medical journal articles a week minimum. I try to read on my reading months, not during competition months, but my reading months, I read 2 to 3 books a week. So I'm constantly trying to keep up on the latest information out there. And why? To pass it along to my clients, so that they can have longevity and they can have hormone balance and happiness and achieve their goals and all of the things. So I'm happy to be here today, and hopefully someone has come across some important information to them, and it's helpful to someone out there. It's my passion to help others thrive. So my Instagram account, I post things all the time, little tips and tricks that I tell my clients. So I post pretty regularly on there. Some of them are controversial. I was, definitely kill the messenger yesterday with posting about dairy and joint inflammation. So, but I just tell it like it is. Hundreds of clients I've worked with, the top of in the world of so many different sports. So yeah, I'm happy to be here today with you and hopefully open some minds.
I think that's so inspiring with your client in her 60s. And I can't help but think about like teenage girls starting with this lifestyle young. And just like, I wish I knew this information. I think I would have saved years of gut damage and maybe prevented my autoimmune flare ups. And I mean, it just breaks my heart that a lot of these girls are being led astray. And I just really hope that they reach out to you and get curious. And Cynthia's Instagram is fast over 40. She definitely is fast, breaking records. Check it out in the caption below. And we really hope you enjoyed this episode. And leave a like if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment if you are like surprised at all of this or want to share your story.
And if you want to bash me, go ahead. I don't really care. I place the value of myself is placed above the I don't value the opinions of others. So I just do not care if anyone disagrees or bashes me or whatever. That's your kuleana, as we would say
Yeah.
in Hawaii. And because what I know is I know my truth, and my truth is that I get to help others thrive. I get to help make babies. I get to help make Olympic champions, and nothing can take that away. So you can say, "Hey, athletes need sugar," but I can tell you that there's nothing like my client winning a national championship, which I had several do last year, winning a gold medal at world championships, and telling me, "Thank you. Thank you so much for helping make this happen, because if it weren't for you, I'd still be in bed, or I'd still be
Yeah.
injured, or whatever it may be." So no kind of criticism of my methods or opinions or whatever can ever take that away, can ever take away that, that baby. That's, I get that picture of that ultrasound or the picture of that baby from this couple that couldn't have children. Like nothing can take that away. I will always believe in my truth because it's worked so many times.
Such a great note to
Leave
end
all the
on.
comments you want. I won't read them anyway.
Yeah,
So
exactly. You're too busy living your best life and breaking records eating steak. So,
yes, and helping.
but
My client Sue, who I mentioned, the 6-year-old, she's going for 2 more records this weekend. It's her first of the year. She broke 9 last year. She's going for 2 more this weekend. So I'm super psyched for her. That's
I
what I'll
I
be
love that. And for
doing.
all the coaches and parents listening, you can participate in this too. And you can become healthy, and it doesn't have to go downhill in your 40s, 50s, 60s. And again, Cynthia's a walking example. Her clients are. It's just this stuff is so powerful, and we were just so excited to share it with you. So, thank you so much again, Cynthia.
I actually
And
have friends in their 80s that are thriving. They
yeah,
started
see,
lifting weights, they reversed illnesses. They thought they were just going to be, on the way downhill. And it's never too late to change. Literally never too late to have a more quality of life. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I will see everyone on the next episode. Bye.